The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Meridian Hotel cast diamonds of light across marble floors slick enough to mirror the designer gowns swirling past. Alina Hartley smoothed her 5-year-old graduation dress and pushed through the crowd of San Francisco's elite, her borrowed invitation burning in her clutch like stolen fire. She wasn't here to belong. She was here for blood. The ballroom smelled of expensive perfume and older money. Ice sculptures shaped like circuit boards sweated under the heat of 1,000 conversations about disruption and innovation. Alina's jaw tightened. These people talked about changing the world while her neighbors got eviction notices. Then she saw him. Julian Blackwood stood near the bar, surrounded by admirers, his midnight blue suit probably worth more than her rent. At 32, he was the tech industry's golden child. Orphaned at 15, self-made billionaire by 30. The media called him a visionary. Alina called him something else. His company had rejected the Esperanza housing project last month. 200 families. 15-minute meeting. Insufficient return on investment. When Julian took the stage, the applause was deafening. His speech was polished. He talked about using technology to solve humanity's greatest challenges, about his company's commitment to a better future. Each pause calculated. Each word rehearsed. Alina felt rage build with every empty promise. When he opened for questions, her hand shot up. "You in the back," Julian said, squinting against the stage lights. Her voice cut through the ballroom like a blade. "Mr. Blackwood, you talk about solving humanity's challenges. But last month, your firm rejected the Esperanza housing project that would have housed 200 families. Can you explain how luxury condos contribute more to society than homes for working families?" Silence dropped like a curtain. Julian descended from the stage, microphone in hand, moving toward her with focused intensity. Up close, he was taller than she expected. His gray eyes were cold, assessing. "Miss, I don't believe we've been introduced. Alina Hartley. Coordinator for the Coalition for Community Housing. You didn't answer my question. Investment decisions are based on comprehensive analysis, not emotional appeals. The Esperanza project had significant structural flaws. Such as?" Alina pulled out her tablet. "I have the full proposal here. 20-year financial projections showing positive returns. Environmental sustainability certifications. Letters of commitment from 3 major employers. Which part was structurally flawed, or did you just not bother reading past the summary?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Phones appeared, recording. Julian's eyes narrowed. "The tech industry isn't a charity, Miss Hartley. Our responsibility is to our shareholders. And what about your responsibility to the community that made your success possible?" Her voice grew stronger. "You started in a garage in Oakland, didn't you? How many garages will exist in Oakland in 10 years if people like you keep pricing everyone out?" Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe. It vanished instantly, replaced by cold professionalism. "I appreciate your passion, but this isn't the appropriate venue for this discussion." He turned away. "Of course it's never the appropriate venue when someone questions your decisions," Alina called after him. "Much easier to hide behind quarterly reports than face the people your choices affect." Julian stopped mid-stride. When he turned back, his expression was thunderous. "You know nothing about the choices I've had to make or the factors I consider. Standing here disrupting an event you weren't invited to doesn't make you a hero. It makes you self-righteous. And writing checks to feel good about yourself doesn't make you a philanthropist," Alina shot back. "It makes you complicit." They stood 3 feet apart, locked in a battle of wills. The rest of the ballroom faded into background noise. Security arrived moments later. As they escorted her toward the exit, Alina turned back one final time. Julian stood watching her, an unreadable expression on his face. Outside, her hands shook. Her phone buzzed constantly. The video was already spreading. What she didn't know was that her life had just changed forever. On Monday morning, she arrived at her new job at the San Francisco Urban Development Initiative. Her dream position. A chance to make real systemic change. Her supervisor, Margaret Chen, greeted her warmly. "Alina, welcome. Before we start orientation, there's someone I want you to meet. Our new board chair just arrived." They walked toward the conference room, Margaret chatting about office culture. Alina nodded along, nervous about making a good first impression. Margaret opened the door with a flourish. "Alina Hartley, I'd like you to meet Julian Blackwood, chair of our board of directors. He'll be working closely with our team on all major initiatives." Alina froze. Julian stood by the window, coffee cup in hand. Their eyes met. Recognition flashed between them like lightning. His expression shifted through surprise, then something that looked almost like grim amusement. "Miss Hartley," he said, voice neutral but eyes sharp. "What an unexpected pleasure. Mr. Blackwood." Her mind raced. "I didn't realize you were involved with this organization. I've been on the board for 3 years. Took over as chair last week." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "It seems we'll be working together quite closely on the city's affordable housing strategy." Margaret beamed, oblivious to the tension crackling between them. "Isn't it wonderful? Julian's been instrumental in securing funding. And Alina, you'll be the project manager reporting directly to him on the Northside Development Initiative." The words hit like a physical blow. Julian extended his hand, challenge in his eyes. "I look forward to working with you, Miss Hartley. I'm sure it will be very educational for both of us." Alina shook his hand, feeling the warmth and strength of his grip. "Likewise, Mr. Blackwood." As Margaret led her away, Alina glanced back. Julian was still watching her, expression unreadable. She had the distinct feeling she'd just walked into a war zone, and the battle lines had already been drawn. 2 weeks of working under Julian Blackwood felt like 2 years. Alina had prepared for vindictiveness, for petty revenge. Instead, she got something far worse. Professional perfectionism bordering on obsession. He questioned every proposal. Every budget line needed 3 sources of justification. Every community meeting required advanced preparation that he reviewed personally, sending documents back with detailed notes in the margins. It was exhausting. Infuriating. And worst of all, it was making her better. "He's trying to break you," Rachel Torres said over coffee, reviewing documents for the 100th time. "I know." Alina rubbed her tired eyes. She'd been up until 2 in the morning refining cost projections because Julian had pointed out an inconsistency. He'd been right, which only made it more annoying. "Why don't you just quit?" Alina had considered it. Every night for 14 days. But something kept stopping her. Maybe stubbornness. Maybe pride. Or maybe the Northside Development Initiative was too important to abandon. "Not giving him the satisfaction," Alina said finally. That afternoon's board meeting was particularly tense. Alina presented the revised Northside proposal, her 3rd iteration in as many weeks. Other board members asked softball questions. Julian sat at the head of the table, silent, his gray eyes tracking every word. When she finished, he leaned forward. Page 15, Section 3. "You've allocated funds for community space, but I don't see programming details. Empty rooms don't build communities." Alina had anticipated this. She pulled up the supplementary document. "Community space will host literacy programs on Monday and Wednesday evenings. Small business workshops on Tuesdays. Youth mentorship on Thursdays. Open community meetings on Fridays. We have commitment letters from 5 local organizations willing to provide programming at no cost to residents." Julian studied the document. For the first time, something like approval flickered across his face. Well done. This is exactly the kind of integration these projects need. The compliment was so unexpected that Alina almost forgot to say thank you. The proposal passed unanimously. After the meeting, Julian approached her. Miss Hartley, do you have a moment? Her guard went up immediately. Of course. Walk with me. They left the building and headed toward the Embarcadero. Late afternoon sun turned the Bay Bridge into a golden silhouette. Julian walked with his hands in his pockets, expression thoughtful. I owe you an acknowledgement, he said finally. The Esperanza project that my firm rejected. I reviewed it again after our encounter at the gala. Alina stopped walking, stunned. You were right, he continued. The analysis was rushed. The rejection was based on incomplete information. What are you saying? I'm saying I made a mistake. The project had merit and deserved better consideration. He turned to face her. I've directed my investment team to reach out to the Coalition for Community Housing to discuss reviving the proposal. Why? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Why are you telling me this? Julian's expression was difficult to read. Somewhere between regret and something softer. Because you were brave enough to call me out when no one else would. And because I've spent the past 2 weeks watching you fight for every family in that Northside proposal with the same passion you showed at the gala. That kind of dedication shouldn't be ignored. They stood in silence. The evening breeze carried the salt smell of the bay. Alina felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. This wasn't the vindictive billionaire she'd expected. This was someone who could admit when he was wrong. Thank you, she said quietly. That means more than you know. Something shifted between them after that night. The antagonism remained, but evolved into mutual respect. Their arguments became debates rather than battles. They began working late together. Alina at her desk in the open office, Julian in his private office with the door open. Sometimes he would call her in to discuss complex zoning issues or review financial models. One evening, 3 weeks after the gala incident, Alina knocked on his door frame. It was past 9. The office was empty except for them. Question about the environmental impact assessment, she said. Julian looked up from his laptop, loosening his tie. Come in. She sat across from him, spreading documents on his desk. As they worked through the technical details, Alina found herself noticing things she'd deliberately ignored before. The way he listened completely when she spoke. The intelligence in his questions. The slight softening around his eyes when he smiled. You're staring, Julian said without looking up from the document. Heat rushed to her face. I'm thinking. About? About how I may have misjudged you. Now he did look up. Their eyes met across the desk. And I'm not sure if that makes things better or worse. Julian's gaze intensified. Why worse? Because it's easier when the lines are clear. When I know exactly who you are and what you represent. And now? Now it's complicated. He stood, moving around the desk. Alina's breath caught as he leaned against the edge, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Sandalwood and something darker. Complicated isn't always bad, he said quietly. It is when we're supposed to be working together professionally. Is that what worries you? The professional implications? Among other things. What are the other things, Alina? It was the first time he'd used her first name. The intimacy of it sent electricity down her spine. I don't trust people like you, she said. People with power. People who make decisions that affect thousands of lives from the comfort of corner offices. People like me, he repeated. Something hardened in his expression. You mean people who grew up in foster care? Who built everything from nothing? Or do you just mean people with money? Alina stood, anger flashing. Don't do that. Don't use your backstory to deflect from legitimate criticism. And don't use your moral superiority to dismiss the complexity of the work I do." His voice was sharp now. "You think I don't know what it's like to be powerless? To watch people make decisions about your life without caring about the consequences?" They were standing inches apart, both breathing hard. "Then why do the same thing to others?" "Because sometimes there are no perfect choices." Julian's voice rose. "Sometimes every option has casualties. Sometimes you have to choose between helping some people and helping different people. Sometimes the math doesn't work no matter how much you want it to." The rawness in his voice stopped her cold. "What happened?" she asked softly. "What choice did you have to make?" Julian turned away, running a hand through his hair. For a long moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. "5 years ago," he said finally, voice low. "I had to choose between keeping my company afloat or saving a community center in the neighborhood where I grew up. The center where I spent every afternoon after school because I had nowhere else to go. Where volunteers taught me to code. Where I met my first mentor." Alina waited, barely breathing. "I chose the company. The center closed 6 months later. Demolished for luxury apartments." He turned back to face her. "So don't tell me I don't understand loss. Don't tell me I don't carry the weight of my choices." The pain in his eyes was real. Unmistakable. Alina stepped closer, her hand hovering near his arm. "Julian, I..." His phone rang, shattering the moment. He glanced at the screen and his entire demeanor changed. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by cold business efficiency. "I have to take this," he said, already moving toward the window. Alina gathered her papers, pulse still racing. As she reached the door, she heard him answer. "Yes, I'm aware of the deadline. No, don't move forward yet. I need more time." There was an edge to his voice she'd never heard before. Something desperate. Something afraid. She left his office with more questions than answers, unaware that everything she thought she knew was about to shatter. The Northside Development Initiative was 3 days from final approval when everything went wrong. Alina arrived at the office to find Margaret pacing outside the conference room, face pale. "What happened?" "Emergency board meeting. Julian called it an hour ago." Margaret's voice trembled. "There's a problem with the funding." Alina's stomach dropped. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where we might lose everything." Inside the conference room, Julian stood at the head of the table, jaw tight, shoulders rigid. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Thank you all for coming on short notice." His voice was controlled but strained. "We've hit a significant obstacle with the Northside project. Our primary investor has withdrawn their commitment." Shocked murmurs filled the room. "That's 40% of our funding," someone said. "I'm aware." Julian's knuckles whitened on the back of his chair. "I'm working on alternatives." "What happened?" Alina demanded. "They were committed 2 weeks ago." Julian's eyes met hers. Something flickered there. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. Market conditions changed. They're redirecting capital to other opportunities. "That's corporate speak for backing out," Alina said. "What's the real reason?" "The real reason doesn't change our situation. We need $20 million in 72 hours or the project dies." The room erupted in overlapping conversations. Solutions proposed and dismissed. Backup investors contacted. Everyone talking over everyone else. Alina watched Julian through the chaos. He was holding something back. She could see it in the way he avoided her gaze, in the tension radiating from his frame. After the meeting, she cornered him in his office. "Tell me the truth. Why did they really pull out?" Julian poured himself a drink from the bar cart. "Scotch, neat. It was 10 in the morning. It doesn't matter. 300 families are about to lose their homes and you're telling me it doesn't matter? He downed the scotch in one swallow, then turned to face her. The exhaustion in his expression was profound. They pulled out because of me. Because I refused to support a different project they wanted. One that would have displaced low-income residents from the Mission District. His laugh was bitter. Ironic, isn't it? I protected one community and destroyed our ability to help another. Alina felt the world tilt. You sacrificed the North Side project to save the mission? Not intentionally. I thought I could find alternative funding. I was wrong. When did this happen? 3 weeks ago. The timeline clicked into place. The phone call she'd overheard. His exhaustion. His desperation. You've been trying to fix this alone this entire time. It's my mess. My responsibility. You stubborn idiot. Alina moved closer. You should have told me. We could have worked together. And say what? That I bet 300 families' futures on my ability to find a miracle? He set down the glass with a sharp crack. That I let my pride destroy everything you've worked for? It's not pride to refuse to hurt people. That's called having principles. Principles don't house families. Money does. Alina grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. Then we find the money. We have 72 hours. We use every connection, every favor, every option. I've already tried everything. Then we try harder. Something in his expression shifted. Hope, tentative and fragile. Why are you helping me? After everything? Because despite what you think, you're not alone in this. Her hand was still on his arm. Neither of them moved. And because I'm starting to understand that you're not the villain I thought you were. Julian's hand came up to cover hers. His palm was warm, his grip gentle. Alina, His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face went white. What is it? He handed her the phone without a word. The email was from a technology news site. Subject line, breaking, Blackwood's secret deals with controversial developers. Alina's blood ran cold as she read. Anonymous sources. Leaked documents. Allegations that Julian had been accepting payments from luxury developers to fast-track projects while blocking affordable housing initiatives. This is insane, she said. These are completely fabricated. Look at the documents. She scrolled down. Financial records. Meeting notes. Everything carefully altered to make Julian look guilty. Someone had gone to enormous effort to destroy him. Who would do this? Someone who wants me out of the way. His voice was hollow. Someone who wants to make sure the North Side project fails. Alina's mind raced. The investor who pulled out. They did this. Probably. We have to fight back. Issue a statement. Show the real documents. Julian shook his head. By the time we prove it's fake, the damage will be done. The board will force me to step down. The project will lose all credibility. So what, you just give up? I protect what I can. I resign before they remove me. The organization might survive if I'm not attached to it. No. Alina's voice was fierce. We don't let them win like this. There's no other option. There's always another option. She pulled out her phone and started typing. What are you doing? Calling in every favor I have. Every journalist I know. Every community leader who trusts me. Her fingers flew across the screen. If they want a fight, we'll give them one. Julian watched her, something like wonder in his eyes. Why are you doing this? Alina looked up from her phone. The question hung between them, loaded with everything they hadn't said. Because someone once told me that dedication shouldn't be ignored. She held his gaze. Because I've seen who you really are when you think no one's watching. Because you tried to protect people at the cost of everything you've built. She stepped closer. And because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as the enemy and started seeing you as someone worth fighting for. The confession hung in the air between them. Julian's expression transformed from shock to something raw and unguarded. Alina. Her name was barely a whisper. He closed the distance between them in one step, his hand cupping her face. His thumb traced her cheekbone. The touch was gentle, questioning. "Tell me to stop," he said. "Tell me this is a mistake." Her hand covered his. "I can't." He kissed her then, slow and deliberate and devastating. She could taste the scotch on his lips, feel the tremor in his hands, sense the desperation and hope and hunger all tangled together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "We're going to lose everything," he said quietly. "Maybe." Alina's hands fisted in his shirt. "Or maybe we're about to win in ways neither of us expected." Her phone buzzed. Then his. Then both at once. They pulled apart to check the messages. Alina's screen filled with responses from her contacts. Support flooding in. People ready to help. Julian's phone showed something different. Another email. Another anonymous source. But this one wasn't about him. It was about her. Photos from the gala. Audio recordings. Evidence showing that Alina had deliberately targeted Julian that night. That she'd planned the confrontation as part of a larger strategy. That she'd gotten the job at the initiative specifically to sabotage projects from the inside. All of it true. All of it twisted to look like a calculated con. Julian read the email, his expression shifting from confusion to comprehension to something cold and terrible. "Is this true?" His voice was carefully neutral. "Did you know I'd be on the board before you took this job?" Alina felt ice flood her veins. "Julian, let me explain." "Did you know?" "Yes, but..." "Everything." He stepped back. "This whole time. Every argument, every late night working together, every moment I thought we were building something real. Was it all part of your plan?" "No. It started that way, but..." "But what?" "But you actually started to care? How convenient." His laugh was sharp and cruel. "I told you about my worst failure. I trusted you with everything. And you've been manipulating me from the beginning." "I'm not manipulating you. Yes, I wanted to work with you to change your mind about affordable housing, but what we have now, this..." She reached for him. He jerked away. Don't pretend this is real when you've been playing a role the entire time." "I'm not pretending." "Julian, please. Get out. Just listen. Get out." The words echoed in the sudden silence. Alina felt tears burn her eyes. "I know how this looks. I know I should have told you. But what I feel for you, what's between us, that's real." Julian turned away, hands braced on his desk. His shoulders shook with the effort of control. "Please leave," he said quietly. "Before I say something we'll both regret." Alina stood frozen, watching the man she'd started to love shut down completely. Every wall rebuilt. Every defense restored. She wanted to fight. To make him understand. But the look on his face when he'd read that email had been pure betrayal. Pure pain. She'd done that. Her choices. Her deception. She left his office and didn't look back. Behind her, she heard the sound of glass shattering against a wall. And in 72 hours, 300 families would lose their last chance at affordable housing unless she found a way to fix everything she'd just destroyed. 48 hours remained. Alina hadn't slept. Hadn't eaten. She'd spent 2 days calling every contact, chasing every lead, begging every potential investor she could find. Nothing. Everyone who might have helped had seen the leaked emails. Half thought she was a con artist. The other half thought Julian was corrupt. No one wanted to touch the Northside project. Rachel found her in the office at 3 in the morning, surrounded by financial documents and cold coffee. "You look like death." "I feel worse." Alina rubbed her burning eyes. "I've lost him, Rachel. I've lost everything. Tell me what happened." So Alina did. All of it. The plan to confront Julian. The calculated decision to take this job. The way everything had changed. The kiss. The betrayal. Rachel listened without interrupting. "Do you love him?" she asked when Alina finished. "Does it matter?" "It's the only thing that matters." Alina's laugh was broken. "I didn't mean to. I was so sure I knew who he was. What he represented. But he's nothing like I thought. He's complicated and flawed, and he genuinely cares about doing the right thing even when it costs him everything." She buried her face in her hands. "I was so focused on my righteous anger that I never stopped to consider he might be trying just as hard as I am. Fighting the same battles from a different side. And now he hates me and I don't blame him. So fix it." "How? How do I fix this?" Rachel pulled up a chair. "You start by finding out who's really behind this attack. Someone leaked those emails about both of you at the exact moment you were most vulnerable. Someone who knew about your history and his. Someone with access to private information." Alina's mind started racing. Someone inside the organization. Or someone with connections to it. They spent the next 2 hours combing through documents, tracking email headers, following digital footprints. Dawn was breaking when Rachel found it. "Alina. Look at this." The metadata trail led back to a single source. An IP address registered to Cordova Development Group. The same luxury developer that had pulled funding. The same company Julian had refused to support when they wanted to displace Mission District residents. They orchestrated all of it, Alina breathed. The funding withdrawal. The leaked emails. They wanted to destroy both Julian and the project. "We need to take this to him." Alina's heart clenched. "He won't listen to me." "Then make him listen." Julian's penthouse apartment overlooked the bay. Alina had the address from company records. She knew showing up uninvited would make everything worse, but she was out of options. Out of time. She buzzed the intercom. Waited. No answer. She tried again. "Go away, Alina." His voice through the speaker was exhausted. Defeated. "I found who's behind the attacks. I can prove you're innocent. Please, just give me 5 minutes." Silence stretched out. Then the door buzzed open. She rode the elevator to the top floor, clutching her laptop like a shield. Her hands trembled. Julian opened the door before she could knock. He looked terrible. Unshaven. Still in yesterday's clothes. Eyes red-rimmed and haunted. 5 minutes, he said. She followed him inside. The apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Minimalist furniture. Art that probably cost more than her yearly salary. And everywhere, stacks of documents. Financial records. Legal papers. He'd been working just as frantically as she had. Alina set her laptop on the coffee table and pulled up the evidence. Cordova Development Group. They orchestrated everything. The funding withdrawal. The leaked emails about both of us. They have a pattern of targeting affordable housing projects that compete with their luxury developments. Julian studied the screen, his expression unreadable. "I can prove you're innocent," Alina continued. We can expose them. Save the project. And what about you? His voice was flat. Can you prove you're innocent? No. She met his gaze directly. Because I'm not. Everything in those emails is true. I did target you at the gala. I did take this job knowing you'd be on the board. I did plan to use our professional relationship to change your mind about affordable housing. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm done with lies. Her voice cracked. I lied about my intentions. I should have been honest from the start. But I never lied about how I feel. Julian turned away, hands clenched at his sides. How you feel, he repeated. You expect me to believe that? After everything? I don't expect anything. I just need you to know. She took a shaky breath. I fell in love with you. Somewhere between the arguments and the late nights and watching you sacrifice everything for people you'd never meet. I fell in love with the man who admitted his mistakes. Who carried the weight of impossible choices. Who tried to protect communities while building empires. Julian's shoulders tensed. I fell in love with you, Alina continued, tears streaming down her face now, and I hate myself for how I made you feel. For betraying your trust. For being exactly the kind of person who uses people to get what they want. She wiped her eyes roughly. So here's the evidence. Do what you want with it. Save yourself. Save the project if you can. I'm resigning. You won't have to see me again. She turned to leave. Wait. Julian's voice stopped her at the door. Did you mean it? What you said about falling in love with me? Every word. Then stay. She turned back. He was watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Stay and fight with me. Not for me. With me. He crossed the room. Yes, you manipulated me. Yes, you lied about your intentions. And yes, I'm furious about it. But I also know that you've spent 2 days trying to fix this. That you came here not to save yourself but to save the project. That you just offered to walk away from everything you've worked for. He stopped in front of her. I've been furious at you. But I've also been furious at myself for falling in love with someone I thought I couldn't trust. For wanting you even when I believed the worst. His hand reached out, hesitant. For realizing that maybe we're both too broken and complicated to deserve simple love stories. Julian. His name was a prayer. I don't forgive you yet, he said quietly. I need time to trust you again. But I'm willing to try if you are. I'll spend the rest of my life earning back your trust. Start by helping me save this project. He pulled up the evidence on her laptop. We have 24 hours and a corrupt development company to expose. Think you can handle that? For the first time in 2 days, Alina felt hope spark in her chest. Together? Together. They worked through the morning, building their case. Documents compiled. Whistleblowers contacted. Journalists briefed. Every piece of evidence carefully organized. By noon, they were ready. They scheduled an emergency press conference for 6 p.m. Every major news outlet confirmed attendance. The story was too big to ignore. At 5:30, as they prepared to leave for the press conference, Julian's phone rang. He answered, listened for 30 seconds, and his face went ashen. What is it? Alina asked. He hung up without speaking. When he looked at her, his expression was destroyed. That was my legal team. Cordova filed an injunction. They're claiming we stole proprietary documents. A judge issued a temporary restraining order. We can't go public with any of this evidence for 30 days. But the project deadline is tomorrow. I know. Alina felt the room spin. They planned this. Every step. They knew we'd find the evidence. They wanted us to, so they could bury it in legal proceedings. We have one option left. Julian's voice was hollow. I can save the project. But not the way we wanted. What do you mean? He pulled out his phone and opened an email. Cordova sent this an hour ago. A private offer. They'll fully fund the Northside project. 300 families housed. Everything we wanted. In exchange for what? In exchange for me publicly supporting their Mission District development. The one that displaces 800 low-income residents to build luxury condos. The cruel genius of it hit Alina like a physical blow. They're making you choose. Save 300 families or protect 800. And they've set it up so that if I refuse, we lose both. Julian's laugh was bitter. They knew exactly how to destroy me. Not with money or power. With the one thing I can't walk away from. Responsibility. What are you going to do? He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city he'd built his empire in. The city that had raised him and broken him and made him who he was. I'm going to accept their offer. Save the Northside families. And spend the rest of my life living with the knowledge that I sacrificed 800 people to save 300. No. Alina grabbed his arm. There has to be another way. There isn't. We're out of time. Out of options. Out of miracles. Then I'll find one. Her grip tightened. I'll go public myself. I'll tell the story without the documents. I'll rally the community. They'll destroy you. Sue you for defamation. Ruin your credibility. Make sure you never work in this field again. He covered her hand with his. I won't let you sacrifice yourself. And I won't let you carry this alone. They stood in the fading light, two people who'd fought and loved and betrayed and found each other anyway, facing a choice that would destroy them no matter what they picked. There has to be a way, Alina whispered. Julian pulled her close, resting his chin on top of her head. Sometimes the only choice is which loss we can live with. His phone buzzed. The Cordova offer. Accept or decline. 1 hour to decide. 300 families or 800. One impossible choice. And somewhere in the city below, people who would never know their lives hung in the balance of one man's impossible decision. 53 minutes left to decide. Alina pulled away from Julian, her mind racing with desperate calculations. 300 families. 800 residents. Numbers that represented real lives, real children, real futures. What if we don't choose, she said suddenly. Julian looked at her like she'd lost her mind. That's not an option. What if it is? She grabbed her laptop. Cordova wants you to publicly support their development. They need your credibility to push it through city council. But what if we take away their power entirely? How? By changing the game. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Cordova needs council approval. The vote is in 2 weeks. What if we don't save the Northside project through funding? What if we save it through policy? Julian's eyes widened as he understood. An emergency housing ordinance. Priority development status for affordable projects. Exactly. If we can get the city to mandate that affordable housing gets fast-track approval and tax incentives, Cordova loses their leverage. The Northside project happens regardless of their funding. That requires votes we don't have. City council is split. Half of them are in Cordova's pocket. Then we get new votes. Alina was already pulling up contact lists. We have community organizers in every district. We have media attention from the leaked emails. We have 2 weeks and we have each other. Alina, this is insane. We'd need a miracle. No. She met his gaze. We'd need to do what we do best. You work the investors and business leaders. I mobilize the community. We make this so public, so loud, that the council has no choice but to vote for the people instead of the money. Julian studied her face, seeing the fierce determination there. The same passion that had made her confront him at the gala. The same strength that had made him fall in love with her. If we fail, both projects die. 300 families and 800 residents all lose. And if we don't try, you spend the rest of your life destroying yourself for a choice you were forced to make. I won't let that happen. He pulled her close, kissing her hard and desperate. I love you, he said against her lips. I don't trust you yet. I'm still angry. But I love you. I love you too. Her hands fisted in his shirt. So let's save this city together. They worked through the night. Julian called every business leader he knew, building a coalition of support. Alina coordinated with community organizers, planning rallies and meetings and media campaigns. By morning, they had commitments from 40 local organizations. By that afternoon, 3 city council members had publicly declared support. By evening, the streets outside City Hall were filled with protesters demanding the ordinance. Cordova fought back viciously. Attack ads. Paid protesters. Legal challenges. They threw everything they had at stopping the momentum. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated what happens when you give people something to fight for instead of against. The days blurred together. Alina barely slept, running from meeting to rally to press conference. Julian worked from dawn to midnight, leveraging every connection, calling in every favor, burning bridges with developers who wanted to maintain the status quo. They fought. About strategy, about tactics, about the risks they were taking. But they also laughed. Late at night in empty offices, over terrible takeout and worse coffee. Finding moments of joy in the midst of war. Learning to trust again. Slowly. Painfully. Honestly. 1 week before the vote, Alina came home to find Julian waiting outside her apartment. What are you doing here? I realized something today. He looked exhausted but lighter somehow. I've been holding on to my anger like a shield. Telling myself I couldn't trust you until some arbitrary moment when you'd proven yourself enough. Julian, you have every right to. But trust doesn't work like that, he interrupted. It's not something you earn and then possess. It's something you build together. Day by day. Choice by choice. And you've been choosing to fight beside me even when it would be easier to walk away. He took her hands. So I'm choosing to trust you. Not because you've proven yourself. But because I'd rather build something real with you than protect myself from getting hurt again. Alina felt tears burn her eyes. I'm going to disappoint you again. I'm going to make mistakes. I know. And I'll probably hurt you too. We're both too damaged to do this perfectly. He smiled, tired but genuine. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we don't need perfect. Maybe we just need honest. She kissed him then. Soft and sweet and full of promise. Stay with me tonight, she whispered. Not because of the campaign or the deadline. Just because I want you here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. They made love slowly, relearning each other. Not as adversaries or allies but as two people choosing to be vulnerable. Choosing each other despite everything. Afterward, wrapped in tangled sheets, Julian traced patterns on her skin. What happens if we lose? He asked quietly. Then we find another way. And another. And another. She turned to face him. But we do it together. The night before the vote, they held a final rally in the Mission District. Thousands of people filled the streets. Families who would benefit from the Northside project. Residents fighting to save their homes. Workers and teachers and artists who couldn't afford to live in the city they'd built. Alina stood on the makeshift stage, looking out at the sea of faces. A month ago, she said into the microphone, I thought I knew exactly who the enemy was. I thought the problem was simple. Rich people who didn't care. Developers who only saw dollar signs. A system designed to exclude people like us. She paused, finding Julian in the crowd. He stood off to the side, watching her with quiet pride. But nothing is that simple. Yes, there are people who profit from inequality. Yes, there are systems designed to protect wealth over people. But there are also people like Julian Blackwood, who grew up in these streets. Who built empires but never forgot where he came from. Who made mistakes but owned them. Who proved that having power doesn't mean you have to abuse it. The crowd listened, rapt. Tomorrow, the city council votes on whether our lives matter as much as profit margins. Whether communities deserve protection or just displacement. Whether San Francisco remains a city for everyone or just for those who can afford it. Her voice grew stronger. We've been told this is impossible. That we can't fight money and power and win. That ordinary people can't change systems designed to exclude them. But standing here tonight, looking at all of you, I know that's a lie. She pointed to the crowd. You are the miracle. Your presence, your voices, your refusal to accept injustice. You are the answer to every impossible question. And tomorrow, we remind those council members exactly who they work for. The roar of approval shook the buildings around them. Julian found her after the rally, pulling her into a quiet alcove away from the crowds. That was incredible. We're going to win, she said. I can feel it. Whatever happens tomorrow, I need you to know something. He cupped her face in his hands. Meeting you, even the way we met, was the best thing that ever happened to me. You made me remember why I started this work. What matters beyond profit margins and quarterly reports. Julian, you're scaring me. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. He kissed her forehead. I just wanted to make sure you knew. The vote was scheduled for 2 p.m. the next day. By noon, City Hall was surrounded by thousands of supporters and protesters. News helicopters circled overhead. Every major outlet covered it live. Alina and Julian sat in the gallery, hands clasped tight, as council members gave their speeches. 4 votes for. 4 against. 3 undecided. The final 3 council members stood to speak. The first one, a longtime politician with ties to development firms, spoke about fiscal responsibility and economic growth. Vote against. 5-4. They needed both remaining votes. The second council member was younger, elected on a progressive platform but known for buckling under pressure. She spoke about her own family's struggles with housing. About eviction notices and impossible choices. Vote for. 5-5. Everything came down to the last vote. Council member Patricia Rodriguez stood. She represented a district where gentrification had hit hardest. She'd been silent through the entire debate. I've listened to both sides, she said. I've looked at the numbers. The projections. The economic analysis. Alina's nails dug into Julian's palm. And I've thought about my grandmother, Patricia continued. Who worked 3 jobs to buy a house in this city. Who raised 5 children in a neighborhood that no longer exists. Who died last year in a nursing home an hour away because we couldn't afford to keep her here. Her voice broke. This vote isn't about economics. It's about who we want to be as a city. Whether we value diversity and community, or whether we become another playground for the wealthy while everyone else is pushed to the margins. She looked directly at the gallery, at the families and workers and dreamers packed into every seat. I vote yes. For the emergency housing ordinance. For my grandmother. For every family that deserves to call San Francisco home. The chamber erupted. 6-5. The ordinance passed. Alina turned to Julian, tears streaming down her face. He was crying too, pulling her into a crushing embrace as celebration exploded around them. They'd won. Not just the vote, but something bigger. They'd proven that communities could fight back. That ordinary people could challenge systems designed to exclude them. That change was possible when you refused to accept the unacceptable. Outside City Hall, the crowd celebrated. News cameras captured the moment. Social media exploded with the victory. But Alina and Julian slipped away, finding a quiet spot overlooking the bay. The same place he'd confessed his mistake weeks ago. The place where everything had started to change. What happens now? Alina asked. Now we implement the ordinance. Save the North Side project and protect the Mission District residents. Start building the city we want instead of accepting the one we have. And us? Julian pulled her close. Now we figure out how to build a life together. With all our complications and contradictions and impossible choices. Sounds difficult. Probably impossible. She smiled against his chest. Good thing we're both stubborn. He tilted her chin up, kissing her as the sun set over the city they'd fought to save. A city of bridges and hills and impossible dreams. A city where a community organizer and a billionaire had somehow found their way to each other. 2 months later, the Northside Development Initiative broke ground. Julian stood beside Alina, holding the ceremonial shovel, surrounded by the families who would soon call the new buildings home. Children ran through the construction site. Parents talked excitedly about schools and jobs and futures. We did it, Alina said softly. You did it. I just helped. We did it together. Julian turned to her, something shining in his eyes. I have a question. What? He pulled a small box from his pocket and dropped to one knee. Alina's breath caught. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out. I know we have a lot of broken trust to rebuild. He opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring. But I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life fighting beside you. Building things with you. Choosing you every single day. His voice was steady, certain. Alina Hartley, will you marry me? She dropped to her knees in front of him, taking his face in her hands. Yes. 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and she kissed him as the families around them cheered. As construction workers whistled and children laughed and the city hummed with possibility. They'd started as enemies. Become allies. Fallen in love through arguments and late nights and impossible choices. They'd betrayed and forgiven. Fought and sacrificed. Lost and found each other again. And in the end, they discovered that the most powerful thing they could build wasn't affordable housing or policy changes or community centers. It was a life together. Complicated and imperfect and real. Built on honesty. Strengthened by struggle. Defined not by where they'd started but by who they'd chosen to become. 6 months after the wedding, Alina found Julian in his home office late at night. He was reviewing plans for a new community center. The same neighborhood where his own childhood center had been demolished. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. Come to bed. In a minute. I want to finish this section. She smiled, reading over his shoulder. Plans for computer labs and after-school programs. Mentorship initiatives and coding classes. Everything he'd once had. Everything he was giving back. You're a good man, Julian Blackwood. He turned in his chair, pulling her into his lap. I'm a work in progress married to another work in progress. Sounds perfect to me. He kissed her, slow and deep. And in that moment, surrounded by plans to help the next generation of kids who needed somewhere to belong, they both knew they'd found what they'd been searching for all along. Not a perfect love story. But a real one. Built on truth and trust and the courage to keep choosing each other, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. And that was better than perfect. That was forever. The end.